Hello and welcome to Uniform Health, the fitness channel that takes a holistic approach to diet and exercise. So today I'm going to be talking about Layne Norton, or Bio Layne. He recently, May 28th, 2013, made a video about set point theory. It's number 16 of his logs. In this video, he does a tremendous job of explaining the set point theory, explained almost as metabolic damage. And this is basically the reaction your body has to reduced calorie states, adjustment of basal metabolic rate, and all that sort of, all the regulatory factors, differences in your gut intestines or gut flora, differences in your sensitivity to foods, upregulation of nutrients, and all that good stuff. The reason why I'm making this video is not just to commend him on an excellent job of articulating a very difficult topic extremely well, and making it very intuitive, I would say. But the reason why I'm making this is actually to counteract or contradict one of his statements. And that is when he says that this is when he was just discussing some theories that are out there about obesity. And he contests that theory of when people have an infection in their stomach or systemic inflammation in their stomach, that they get obese because of it. He says that's incorrect, because if you look at it, people who are sick, when you're sick, you have inflammation. That's why it's your body's response to a infection, and you get hot and you get all sorts of agitated and all this stuff, and your your metabolic rate is boosted because you're so hot. I mean, your immune system is activated and your metabolic rate is elevated. The only thing that he fails to recognize here is that there are numerous studies showing the correlation between inflammation and obesity. And there are a multitude of mechanisms of action being proposed for the obesogenic nature of inflammation. Now, I'll go over those with you. There are, you're going to hate me for this, but there are some mice. These mice were sterile, and one was obese and non-sterile. What they did was they took the gut biome, the gut flora of the gut bacteria of the mouse that was obese, and injected that into the sterile skinny mouse. The result was that skinny mouse ended up becoming obese. For whatever reasons, I don't know if they regulated caloric intake and things, but the origin of it doesn't necessarily matter. The fact is that bacteria had an effect on the influence of possibly metabolic rate and also dietary intake of food. So a systemic infection in your gut could definitely have an effect on what exactly you go and eat, or exactly your metabolic rate. Now, the biological mechanisms of this are both in the respect of leptin insensitivity as a result of inflammation, insensitivity of insulin as a result of inflammation, and maintaining a homeostatic level of blood sugar is essential for regulating your appetite. If you can't regulate your blood sugar, you have an effective cravings for sugar and other foods. The other issue I have, and this is more anecdotal, is that when you're aggravated, you typically need the dopamic response that is generated from eating food. Say you're pissed off and stuff. A lot of people get pissed off and they eat. They eat when they're sad, emotional eating, and a lot of these things are a result of being too inflamed. When you're super inflamed, environmental stressors have a much more dramatic impact on you and can result in changes in your dietary habits. So inflammation can have a response in that respect. There's also changes in a hormone called adiponectin. And this adiponectin is essential for regulating insulin sensitivity and a multitude of other things. And this is one of the things that's proposed for why people who are obese have heart disease and all these other issues. Now, the other portion of this is that when you have systemic inflammation in your gut, is that he correctly alludes to the changes in the flora that result from caloric deficit. Your gut flora change in order to acquire nutrients more effectively. And I would propose that the same foods that you are eating will cause that systemic or that response and that change within your gut flora for one reason or the other. That inflammation resulting from, because when you're in a caloric deficit, you also become inflamed. That inflammation could cause this environmental response in your gut flora. So, additively to that, there is so many different issues revolving around obesity, and they're not all cut and dry. Inflammation is associated with anorexia, and it's also associated with poor nutrient intake. And this goes to my last proposed mechanism. Many people who are obese actually have deficiencies in mineral and vitamin content. And deficiencies are getting more loosely defined now amongst the medical community, but one of the reasons for this is because when you have inflammation in your body, what happens is that the microvilli on your intestinal lining die off. These microvilli are essential for the absorption and uptake of nutrients. If they're dying off, then you're not going to be absorbed the proper nutrients. The other issue with this is then you also have permeability of the gut. So now these proteins and things will go into your gut, cause further inflammation because of the immunological response from that, and it's sort of a cyclical cycle of inflammation. The other issue is that when you have deficiencies in micronutrients, is that your body actually results in some cravings. Another additive factor to this is that some people may know of Candida, and this is a yeast infection within the gastrointestinal tract. Within the book Mastering Leptin, they allude to the fact that neuropeptides are altered with this Candida, and it results in cravings for sugar. So basically what I want to say here is that systemic inflammation is a massive condition that is a result of obesity and can cause obesity. So to say that inflammation increases your metabolism and therefore there's no correlation with it, that was kind of poor on his job, and he'll probably correct that. And also, notably, the reason for that is a heat shock protein. It's the body's response to the inflammation. And in fact, there's evidence to show that this is actually a down regulation of the inflammatory component of your body. So when you're overly inflamed, you get this heat shock protein, which is actually attempting to down-regulate the inflammation response. So, and this goes into another thing. Is my last statement is your body is always trying to reach this homeostatic condition, the balance. And inflammation is the result of imbalance, in my opinion. Deficiencies, just imbalance in general. It's a result of unhealthy lifestyle and diet. So, if you're having an unhealthy lifestyle and inflammation is a response, it is not necessarily the causative agent, but it certainly isn't helping anything in most conditions, and this is chronic inflammation. So that's basically what I wanted to say, is that Layne Norton killed it basically, but he just did that little screw up, which is actually a pretty big screw up in my opinion. And I just wanted to correct him and maybe hopefully get a response out of him for this if he can bear through listening to it. But thank you, Layne Norton, for an excellent video, and keep making them. They were great. And thank you guys.